Alright, we have an interesting topic to discuss today. If you've been around in the Transformers fandom long enough, I'm sure you've come across people being very negative about character designs, new shows, movies. This take on Transformers isn't like this take or something like that. So we're going to be looking at why Transformers fans are so averse to change. Transformers as a franchise has been going on for, at the time of this recording, 41 years. And it's had, at this point, dozens of different versions, reboots, sequels, this and that. So many different versions of characters, so many different designs for individual characters, so many different design aesthetics. Like, there really is something for everyone, for the most part, in this franchise. And it shows that Transformers, for most of its run so far, has been pretty diverse, especially from around the start of Beast Wars, so like 96 through around mid-2010s or so a good solid 20-ish years. But so many people love to just complain about why isn't this like this, especially when it comes to G1 stuff. A lot of people just really want it to be G1 again, and for better or worse, that's what we've been getting for the past few years. And it's just wild to me. They expect all these characters to always look alike and this and that, and I think people think Transformers is too much like a franchise like, say, Marvel or DC or something like that, where they want to keep characters consistent. They have these copyrights and whatnot. They need to keep characters recognizable and this and that, and stories fairly similar. Not that there aren't stuff like what ifs and alternate universes and stuff like that. There are a lot of similarities and whatnot with Transformers, but the thing is that a lot of people forget Transformers is a toy franchise. It isn't specifically about the characters and stories. It's just about, hey, selling toys. Now, the characters and stories and concepts were so strong that it has the fan base that it does today, do not get me wrong. But it's just the fact is, having Optimus Prime look different in the various iterations helps sell toys. Having things be different every time helps sell toys. Characters like, say, Spider-Man or Batman from Marvel and DC, yeah, they've evolved over the years, like Batman used to kill and he doesn't nowadays. That was solidified fairly early on. Transformers characters haven't really been solidified like that, I guess you could say. Sure, you could argue that like different versions have, but that's the thing. There's been so many different versions that it's really hard to nail it down to this one version being like the main one. A lot of people will argue that G1 versions are the main versions, but they're just the first, and sorry, being first doesn't really mean much. And as much as I hate to say it, I really do feel like a lot of G1 fans, mostly the G1er crowd, are to blame for a lot of this stuff. Like, they are the ones that really do it the most. Transformers has spent most of its 41 years doing reinventions of the franchise, reinventing the basic concept, characters, whole designs. So that's why I think it'd be pretty cool to look at it from basically each era of the franchise, starting with, of course, G1 and everything in the 80s. As far back as G1, fans have had knee-jerk reactions to change in the Transformers universe. Take the 86 movie, for example. On the one hand, cherished and regarded as the true holy grail of Transformers movies, a pedestal that I personally believe it shouldn't be on. But on the other hand, vastly looked down upon for the changes in the story and world building. The introduction of the Quintessons shattered the already flimsy origin mythos. The changing of the guard was rejected by many, especially when it came to Rodimus Prime. And of course, the killing of Optimus Prime was denounced by countless fans to the point where the showrunners brought him back just to placate the masses. I'm sure we've all heard the story of kids crying and locking themselves in their rooms because of what happened to Optimus, and if I remember right, Hasbro got a lot of hate mail then too. Then moving into G2, there was a general rejection among many Transformers fans. While the changes weren't the most egregious things in the world like the Action Masters follow-up was, it was still not favorably looked upon. Granted, G2 was a simple rehash of G1 with spotty CGI interludes, but the comics and toys told a completely different story, and one that was seen as cheap and lazy by fans. And then kind of focusing in on the Action Masters, as the brand moved towards more action-oriented play with Action Masters in an attempt to rebrand the Transformers as franchise as fun and play-focused, the fan base seemed to die off. Again, this is somewhat justified as the main shtick of the Transformers is to transform, and with the very G.I. Joe-esque toy line, that was kicked to the wayside. Still though, the attempt to change was rejected. So then of course Transformers, well, transformed once again. And this time we were given Beast Wars. And I'll just throw in there too, I freaking love both Beast Wars and Beast Machines. Wars more so than Machines, but it's one of my favorite versions. I freaking love it. And while it did eventually garner the love it very much deserved, it was greeted with harsh skepticism and ridicule. Phrases like truck, not monkey, were tossed around by the vocal crowd of dejectors who to this day still panned the series, but Beast Wars was innovative. It added so much to the lore while also showing just how creative this world of autonomous mechanical beings can be. Naturally, Beast Machines was looked down upon as well, and for many still seen as an inferior follow-up. But the fact is, there's so much stuff introduced in those shows that have become just mainstay type stuff within Transformers, like Sparks. Sparks were not a thing before Beast Wars. Both Beast Wars and Beast Machines not only introduced that concept, but really expanded on it. That's become a thing, and I'm pretty sure protoforms were first introduced, or at least they became very big in Beast Wars. There will always be those that argue that G1 obviously laid the foundation of sorts, but like, so much stuff that we take for granted nowadays in the franchise was built up by the Beast era. Then R&D 2001, or Robots in Disguise, was also not viewed very favorably, as it completely rewrote the history of Transformers, moving into our first alternate universe or reboot timeline, and breaking away from the G1 mold. Character designs, voices, characteristics, everything was different, and people hated it because it wasn't enough like G1. Sure, the show might have been a tad silly, but still it was doing its own thing. I personally love RID-01. It's so much fun. Same went for the start of the Unicron trilogy, Armada, a series that brought in a ton of fans. This is generally seen as the third big, like, high point for the franchise as a whole, because Armada brought in a lot of fans. Not sure if it was more than Beast Wars or G1 or anything like that, but it was pretty huge for kids at that time. But again, rejection, denial, and disappointment from the original fan base. I can recall people comparing it unfavorably to Pokemon, Pokeformers, and whatnot. And granted, Armada has its issues. A lot of its toys are bricks, some might see that as a good thing, but say that gimmicks got in the way of the toy, they're not very articulated. The show was definitely a rushed dub in probably most of the bad ways that sounds. I still love the show, but it certainly has its flaws. Energon was basically rejected by everybody, and Cybertron seems to have kind of basically the same sort of reception as Armada, I would say. Then we have the first live-action Transformers movie. Yada yada, hype and speculation, then skeptics with the announcement of Bay, then hype with the announcement of Cullen, then anger and rage and death threats over flames on a long-nosed truck and a sports car instead of a Volkswagen Bug. And of course, the hissy fits thrown over the designs, Michael Bay having his laptop hacked, and again, just more death threats, man. Then the reception post-released with mixed results, but the naysayers completely hating everything, even though this changed the course of the brand's future with influences still felt today. Then getting to animated, it was dogged on for its style, the removal of Prime as the de facto leader, the reintroduction of robot/former humans concepts like Circuit Breaker with, of course, sorry, and carrying forward with the Allspark, because it very much so was based on the movie version. Even though the Allspark as a name and sort of a concept came from Beast Machines, just want to throw out there why the Beast era is so important. Animated today is a fairly beloved series, but it did not have a very welcome start, we'll say. Then of course there's just still the general hatred to the Bay movies, regardless of how much of the past was influential or homaged, like The Fallen, Carly, the various G1 episodes it takes from, like Ultimate Doom, or the hatred for the people that makes the movies, you know, like Bay, or even actual fucking fans, despite what some people might say, just continued and was crazy to see. Transformers Prime, you know, it did seem like it was pretty well loved even at the start, but still saw hate from people, particularly G1ers, for being too Bay with its designs and serious tone. And you know, I'll probably leave it there in terms of the franchise history, because I'm pretty sure you get the point. There's been so many versions that just get so much shit just because it does stuff new, different designs, design styles, this and that. It's just so wild to me. And long story short, it's G1ers. That is the common denominator here. Anything that changes to a point where it isn't akin to G1 is always met with stark rejection, only to later be slightly accepted by the detractors. Other fans are blasted for liking the changes. It's the general negativity that fuels division in the fandom. And like another point that I see brought up a lot is the whole idea of the source material. Like, a lot of people call G1 the source material, but it's like, to me, guys, there is no real source material for Transformers. G1 started as a random mishmash of various toy lines. Yes, they had people from like Marvel working on it and whatnot, but it's like, even at its very foundation, it just basically stole from a bunch of stuff and just kind of made stuff up. In a lot of ways, that's kind of what other versions have done. Yeah, you'll get some consistency with like character names, maybe the basic version of the character. Like, a lot of Optimus Primes are at their basic core the same, stuff like that. And of course, there are concepts like, say again, Sparks, that will go through a lot of different versions and be relatively the same. But I don't know, man, it's just at this point there's been so many different continuities, so many shows, comics, and even movies that do stuff different in really big ways or really small ways that it's hard to say that there's a I don't know, like a base level, like this is all it, like across the board. So yeah, you know, you can base something off of a specific version. That's like, I don't like when people say that the Michael Bay movies aren't a good adaptation of Transformers or something like that. What they really mean is they don't like that it's not so G1, because it's meant to be adapting just the concept of Transformers. It's not meant to be a specific version. I feel like people miss that when they mention source material and stuff. And then as I've gone on before in various videos in the past, like a lot of stuff has gotten so boring too, where again, the past few years, we have gotten stuff that's been relatively similar, and just makes you want to snooze, man. Do you remember when we used to get a lot of different casts of characters? Like, think about the Unicron trilogy. Basically, the only two on each side that were really big for each team were Optimus and Hotshot, and then Megatron and Starscream. In Cybertron, Scattershot was a main character. Scattershot. We just don't really get that anymore. Nowadays, on the Decepticons, it's Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Shockwave. I like all four of those characters, but it's like, it's always them. And then on the Autobots, it's like Optimus, Bumblebee, probably Ratchet, and RC. I just remember when we used to get a few new characters that were like kind of deep pools of names and whatnot. We get that, but just to smaller degrees now. It just sucks, man. Like, it really is the same characters popping up over and over. It also just really feels like it takes away the fun of the franchise. You even see it with like toys and stuff, because like there are plenty of G1ers that will get upset if they are not catered to. Like, I remember when the first part of the Legacy trilogy, which was just called Legacy, when it revealed that its Titan class figure was going to be not just a Metroplex, but Cybertron Metroplex. People were throwing an absolute fucking fit over it not being a G1 Metroplex. It was ridiculous, man. And you see that a decent bit. Like, people were complaining about Legacy United not having many G1 characters, and hell, I even had a good bit of them come out when I did the SS86 Needs to Stop video, and then even the Hating the Bayverse Isn't a Personality video. Like, a lot of these same people were coming for me. And you know, it's important to note that preferences are fine. We are all allowed to like what we like and dislike what we don't. This is just to point out that the abject hate that any attempt at inspired change is often greeted with immediate skepticism and hatred by a very vocal crowd. And that kind of negativity is far too common and overblown, especially for a brand whose main gimmick is that of change and transformation. The irony to me of not liking change in the franchise that at its very core is about change. It's hilarious. It's so funny. And this franchise has stories that embody acceptance and togetherness, with themes of good triumphing over evil in many different forms. Megatron becomes a good guy sometimes, he's murked in others, stuff like that. Change is the literal DNA of the brand, and if it is to survive, it will need to innovate and always try to improve. It needs to, it has to. That's how it's done well for so long, and part of the reason why I feel like we are in a rough patch as of the recording of this video, the end of 2025, it's because we're not innovating anymore. It's too much nostalgia bait, and it's just relying too hard on the past. Like, people love to say, oh, G1 sells, it's the most famous part of the franchise, blah blah blah, when first, yeah, sure, it's easy to say that it sells when that's all they're fucking selling. But also, just like, G1's killing the franchise, man. It's putting such a stranglehold on everything. Transformers needs to change. It needs to innovate. If it stayed the same all the time, it would get old quick and stagnant. And the fact is, I feel like we hit the stagnant change a while ago. I made that video back in, what, 2022? Stagnation becomes apathy, and apathy is death, as the lack of action means a lack of purpose, and something without purpose becomes pointless. Nobody wants this brand to die, unless you just don't like it for some reason. So we should try to support change when it happens, and if we don't like it, we just wait for the next generation. And no one's saying you have to like all change, and not all change is good, but I feel like at the very least it should be given a chance. Again, we don't have to like it every time, but instead of always looking down at change, we can look for a silver lining instead. See the good that can come from it, and look to the horizon for a brighter tomorrow. Remember, till all are one. So yeah, that's my video on why are Transformers fans so averse to change. I have to give a big shout out to my friend Austin Gillis. He contributed heavily to the video and really gave me a point to kind of stick on with kind of going through the timeline of the movie. So bro, thank you so much here. But tell me, why do you think Transformers fans can be so averse to change? Do you agree with my points here? What would you add to any of them? And what are some other reasons that you can think of? Let me know down in the comments. Before we go, I wanted to share my shop on Bonfire, where I have some shirts, including the very cool Faye Prime Did Nothing Wrong shirt. Check that out if you have the time. And of course, I want to thank my members on Patreon. In my average bird tier, there is Schmoptimus Prime and Deep Space Dorito. And in my bird of prey tier, there is Austin Gillis and Nighthawk. The channel support is greatly appreciated, you guys. Thank you. And as always, I want to give a big thanks to everyone for watching, and have a good one.